The galaxy was watching. Far beyond Earth, among the cold stars, voices of 1,000 alien races gathered in the Grand Council. Their decision was final. The humans had grown too bold, too fast, and too dangerous. No longer would Earth be allowed to rise unchecked. And so the message was sent, carried on beams of light and across the void of space. Kneel, or be destroyed. When the words reached Earth, silence followed. In cities across the planet, giant screens replayed the Council's decree. People stood still, frozen in streets, in homes, in schools. Some were afraid, others angry, but most felt the same weight pressing on their chests. The demand to kneel was not just to governments or armies. It was to every single human being. It was a demand to surrender the very idea of freedom. World leaders gathered in secret chambers. Some argued to obey, believing survival mattered more than pride. Others whispered of resistance, though their voices shook with fear. After all, what chance did Earth have against empires that stretched across entire galaxies? From above, the night sky looked the same as it always had. Stars burned quietly, unaware of the storm about to break. But deep inside humanity, something old began to stir. The same fire that once led humans to cross oceans, climb mountains, and defy death itself now flickered again. The Council thought Earth would kneel, but Earth was listening in silence. Waiting, watching. Days passed and no reply was sent. Alien fleets gathered at the edges of the solar system, certain that humans were paralyzed by fear. Armadas of silver, gold, and fire-colored ships patrolled, preparing to strike. The Council mocked them, calling them primitive. They told stories across the stars that Earth was weak, unworthy, and soon to be broken. Yet within Earth's quiet, something was hidden. In the deserts, far from cities, vast doors in the sand began to rumble open. In the oceans, black waters split apart as enormous shadows rose. On the far side of the moon, where few dared to look, hangars sealed for decades came alive with light. And in the empty dark beyond Pluto, where telescopes could not reach, engines long dormant burned once more. Humanity had been preparing, not for peace, not for surrender, but for the day the galaxy would come demanding chains. They called it the Black Armada. The name was whispered first by engineers who built its iron hulls in secret shipyards. It spread among pilots who swore to give their lives the moment the first shot was fired. It became a legend, a warning, and a promise, while Earth's leaders bowed their heads in public. In secret, they gave their blessing to the Armada, trusting it to be the one hand raised against the entire galaxy. And so the silence was not weakness. It was a mask. It was the calm before thunder. The Galactic Council grew impatient. More fleets moved closer. Their warships lit the void with weapons brighter than suns, ready to erase Earth in a single strike. Broadcasts filled every channel, taunting humanity to reply. Still, Earth said nothing. But on the 7th day after the demand was sent, the silence finally broke. Alien captains patrolling near the orbit of Neptune heard it first. A deep echo across the void, like drums from a forgotten battlefield. Radar screens flickered with shadows too large to be asteroids, too sharp to be mistakes. Then from the darkness, shapes began to emerge. They were ships, but not like any the aliens had seen before. Their hulls were dark, swallowing the starlight, their forms sharp and angular like blades. Each one moved with deadly precision, silent and vast, wings stretching wide as though they were predators hunting in the cosmic night. The aliens watched, unsure if their sensors were lying. The number of ships kept rising, dozens, hundreds, more. At their center was a flagship so massive it seemed to pull gravity itself. Its engines glowed a burning violet, and its name, etched into its steel, carried across channels now open for all the galaxy to hear. The Black Armada had arrived. Panic spread among alien ranks. They had expected a broken world begging for mercy, not an army forged in shadows. Messages of alarm raced back to the Council, but the Armada did not wait for permission to be feared. Inside the flagship, human voices spoke in calm, measured tones. Orders were given, systems unlocked, weapons armed. Men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment stood ready at their stations. Their faces carried no fear, only the cold focus of a species that had been told to kneel one time too many. Then came the human reply, sent not in words but in action. The Black Armada ignited its engines as one, their purple flares burning brighter than the stars behind them. The silence of Earth was gone. Now, there was only the roar of war. The galaxy had demanded surrender. What it received instead was the shadow of ships stretching across the heavens, a warning born of steel and fire. Humanity kneels to no one. The galaxy believed Earth was slow, fragile, and divided. For centuries, humans had fought among themselves, wasting lives in wars that seemed endless. To the Galactic Council, humanity was a child race too reckless to be trusted with true power. But what the Council did not know was that humans had learned from their chaos. They had turned every scar, every war, every broken empire into lessons. And so while the galaxy mocked Earth, humanity built in silence. It began after first contact. The Council had arrived with gifts of technology and promises of peace, but hidden in their words was a quiet threat. Stay small, stay weak, stay beneath us. Humanity smiled and accepted their machines, but in the shadows they began to dream of something greater. In secret deserts, far from the eyes of satellites, the first shipyards rose. They were buried under miles of sand, cloaked by heat and storms. Entire cities lived beneath the ground, working day and night to weld the skeletons of warships. Engineers slept beside their machines. Children grew up listening to the hum of engines instead of lullabies. Generations were raised not for peace but for the promise of a coming war. At sea, vast floating platforms drifted in the middle of the oceans, invisible to those who did not know where to look. They harvested the endless waters to feed the forges hidden below, shaping steel as black as night itself. When storms came, no one saw the giant shadows rise from the depths. Hulls so vast they blotted out the sun before sinking again beneath the waves. On the far side of the moon, humanity's oldest secret was waiting. For decades, construction had continued in silence. Hangars carved into craters, tunnels filled with fuel and weapons, towers reaching to the stars like claws. The moon was no longer a barren rock. It was the beating heart of a hidden empire, and beyond even that, further still, were the dark stations of Pluto. No telescope had ever seen them. No alien probe had survived long enough to tell the tale. Out there in the frozen dark, machines without names worked endlessly, building ships that never saw Earth, never saw sunlight, until the day they would be called. They called this dream the Black Armada, and it was more than steel. It was blood. Every ship was a graveyard of sacrifice. Miners died carving fuel from dangerous rocks. Scientists burned themselves in experiments with unstable power. Pilots vanished in training accidents, their names etched into silent walls. Families gave up sons and daughters for the promise of freedom. Humanity had never been united before, but the fear of chains bound them tighter than any treaty ever could. The ships themselves were unlike anything the galaxy had imagined humans could build. They were not bright and beautiful like the golden fleets of the Council. They were not filled with songs of pride or banners of empire. They were dark, sharp, and silent. Ships designed not to impress but to terrify. Each one carried weapons that were born from desperation. Rail cannons that could tear apart a mountain. Torpedoes that whispered through the void before exploding with the strength of stars. And deep inside, cores of unstable energy that humans barely understood. Dangerous, unpredictable, but powerful enough to make the bravest alien commanders lose their courage. And yet, the most dangerous weapon was not the steel, nor the fire, nor the black engines that lit up the void. It was the people inside. The pilots of the Black Armada were not chosen for their wealth or their birth or their politics. They were chosen for their defiance. Men and women who had lost everything to war, who had seen hunger, poverty, and despair, now sat behind controls with eyes that did not blink. To kneel was not in their blood. To surrender was not in their language. For decades they trained in silence. They fought in simulations. They tested their courage in the blackest corners of space, and when one failed, another took their place. They swore oaths that no alien would ever hear, but every human understood. If the galaxy comes for us, we will burn the stars before we bow. The Council had no idea. They thought Earth was quiet because it was weak. They thought humans had accepted their chains. But in the silence of deserts, oceans, moons, and frozen worlds, the Armada waited. And now the waiting was over. On Earth, people felt something shift. The silence that had once seemed like fear now felt like tension before a storm. Families whispered of strange lights in the sky. Children pointed at the stars and asked what shadows moved between them. Soldiers who had been called away for years never returned home. Their faces never shone again, but their absence was no longer a mystery. Everyone knew, even if no one said it, something was coming. The Galactic Council would soon learn the truth. Because when they demanded Earth to kneel, they were not speaking to a frightened world. They were speaking to a weapon hidden for decades, built from blood and steel. They were speaking to the Black Armada, and the Black Armada was already awake. The Council's fleet reached the edge of the solar system like a storm of fire. Thousands of ships stretched across the black void, each one shining with gold, silver, and bright alloys that reflected the light of distant suns. Their banners floated on screens, their weapons glowed like small stars. This was the pride of the galaxy, the force that had broken 100 worlds. To the Council, Earth was only another name to add to the list of conquered. Alien commanders laughed when they saw the small blue planet shining faintly in the distance. To them, Earth was nothing, a rock of water and dust clinging to life, daring to resist empires that had stood for millennia. They expected surrender. They expected tears and begging voices. Some even placed wagers on how quickly the humans would bend. For days, the fleet lingered near Neptune, their sensors sweeping every corner of space. And still Earth remained silent. No reply, no signal of surrender. Only the cold stillness of the stars. Then on the fourth night, everything changed. It began as a vibration. Alien crews felt their decks tremble, their instruments flicker. At first, they thought it was interference from the planet's magnetic fields. But then the vibration grew, like the beating of drums through the void. One by one, commanders ordered scans, and what they saw made their voices fall silent. Shadows moved in the dark. At first, there were only a few, shapes without light, without reflection, drifting like predators in the night. But then the numbers grew, dozens, hundreds, a tide of black steel flowing from the darkness beyond Pluto. The Black Armada had come, alien captains shouted orders. Fleets shifted into battle formations, weapons charged with radiant energy. Still, unease spread among them, for never had they seen ships like these. The Armada was not bright and noble. It did not shine like theirs. It consumed light, bending the stars around it, as if the ships themselves were shadows born into flesh. The flagship of the Council, a golden leviathan named Radiance of Order, sent out a warning: identify yourselves. The reply was silence. Instead, the human ships advanced in perfect unity. Their engines glowed with violet fire, their hulls sharp like blades, each movement precise as if every ship shared a single will. The aliens were used to intimidation, to enemies breaking before them. But the Armada did not break. It did not slow. It moved forward with the patience of hunters who had already chosen their prey. Panic began to spread. Messages flooded the Council's network. How many ships? What class are they? Who gave Earth this technology? But no one had answers. The truth was simple, and it was terrifying. Earth had built this in secret, and now it was too late to stop it. Inside the human flagship, calm voices echoed. Orders were spoken like a ritual. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer knew their role. The time for hiding was over. The time for silence was done. The first shot was not fired by aliens. It was fired by humanity. From the bow of the lead ship, a rail cannon released a spear of metal faster than light. It tore through the void like a thunderbolt, slamming into the golden hull of an enemy cruiser. The impact split the ship in half, its pieces burning as they spun into the darkness. For the first time in centuries, the Council's fleet felt fear. Then came the storm. The Armada opened fire in unison. Railguns roared, plasma arcs cut across the dark, torpedoes streaked like falling stars. The alien ships returned fire, filling space with beams of energy and bursts of fire. Explosions bloomed like suns, lighting the frozen silence of Neptune's orbit. But the Armada did not falter. They fought with a discipline the galaxy had never seen from humans. Every formation was perfect, every strike measured. Alien ships fell one after another, their commanders stunned by the precision of the attack. The Council's fleets had expected savages. What they faced instead was a machine made of people who refused to kneel. From within their ships, human pilots felt no fear. They remembered the deserts where they were trained, the oceans where their ships were born, the oaths whispered in the shadows. This was not just war. It was the answer to every insult, every chain, every demand to bow. Still, the battle was not easy. The Council's fleets were vast, their weapons ancient and terrible. Human ships burned, their hulls shattered, lives were lost with every passing moment. But even in death, the Armada did not retreat. Each fallen ship became a shield for another, each sacrifice a step forward in defiance. At the height of the clash, the alien flagship broadcast across all channels. Its commander, voice filled with anger and disbelief, demanded, "Why resist? You cannot win. You are only humans." For the first time, the Armada answered with words. A single voice, cold and steady, carried across the void. "We are only human. And that is enough." Then the flagship of humanity fired, a blast so powerful it split the radiance of order in two. The Council's proud jewel, the ship that had ended countless wars, now burned in silence, its light fading into the dark. All across the battlefield, alien fleets hesitated. Doubt spread like poison. If their greatest ship could fall, what hope did the rest have? But the Black Armada did not hesitate. It pressed forward, driving deeper into enemy lines, each volley a reminder of the truth. Earth would not kneel, and in that moment, as fire spread across the stars, the galaxy learned something it would never forget. Humanity was no longer a weak voice on a small planet. Humanity was a storm, a shadow, a roar of defiance. The first confrontation had begun, and it was only the beginning. The void burned with fire. Where once the edge of the solar system had been quiet and cold, now it blazed with the fury of 1,000 suns. The Black Armada clashed with the fleets of the Council in a storm of steel, light and death. Every second was a roar of weapons, every moment a struggle between survival and destruction. But in that chaos, something became clear. Humanity was not only resisting, humanity was winning. The Armada fought as though every ship carried the weight of the entire species, and in truth it did. For the first time in history, humans were not divided by nations, languages, or borders. Every vessel, every pilot, every engineer was part of a single will: defiance. The aliens could not understand it. They were used to wars of pride, of greed, of empire. Their soldiers fought for rulers, their ships flew under banners. But the humans fought for something different. They fought not to conquer, but simply to exist free. They fought as if each battle was the last chance to breathe. The Black Armada's tactics shocked the galaxy. While the Council's fleets moved in rigid formations, humans adapted with fluid, unpredictable strikes. One moment their ships disappeared into the black, engines muted like predators stalking unseen. The next they reappeared in perfect unity, striking with brutal precision. A squadron of alien destroyers tried to surround the human flank. The Armada responded by splitting its own formation, luring the destroyers into a trap. From behind Neptune's shadow, 3 human warships rose, their rail cannons unleashing a storm that tore the destroyers to pieces. Not one human ship fell in that exchange. Another Council fleet launched a barrage of plasma beams, burning a swath through the dark. A single human cruiser, Iron Dawn, moved forward to shield its comrades. Its hull melted under the fire, its crew screaming as systems collapsed, but they held long enough for the rest of the Armada to strike back. When Iron Dawn finally split apart, it became a wall of wreckage that blocked the enemy's advance. Every life lost was not in vain. It was fuel for humanity's fire. From within the alien ranks, fear grew. They had believed humans would kneel at the first show of force. Instead, they saw a people who welcomed the storm, who turned pain into strength. The Council's commanders shouted for order, but their voices carried no weight against the sight of the Black Armada pressing forward through fire. Inside the flagship of humanity, silence reigned. No one celebrated, no one cried. Every officer, every soldier moved with calm determination. The battle was not a victory yet. It was survival, second by second, breath by breath. In the command chamber, Admiral Kalen stood tall, his eyes fixed on the shifting lights of the battlefield. His voice was steady as he gave orders. Press the line. No retreat. Let them feel our defiance. Around him, men and women obeyed without question. They had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Outside, the Armada unleashed its full might. Torpedoes streaked like falling stars, tearing open alien cruisers. Rail cannons fired in endless rhythm, each shot like the beating of a colossal drum. Plasma lances cut through the dark, illuminating shattered hulls that spun into the void. The aliens fought back with desperation, Their beams sliced through human ships, their missiles struck with deadly force. Every explosion was another wound, another sacrifice. But the Armada refused to break. Even when a ship was lost, others closed ranks around the gap, pressing forward without pause. Then came the moment that changed everything. The alien command ship, a fortress of gold twice the size of any human vessel, advanced into the heart of the battle. Its weapons unleashed storms of energy, shattering human ships in its path. For a moment, the Armada wavered under its might. The Council commanders broadcast across every channel, "Earth, this is your end. Surrender and we will spare what remains." But the humans did not surrender. Instead, a single voice replied, broadcast from the flagship of the Armada. It was calm, steady, and cold. "We kneel to no one." With those words, the Armada struck as one. Every ship turned its weapons on the alien fortress. Torpedoes rained, rail cannons thundered, beams of plasma cut deep. The Council ship roared with fire, shields collapsing under the relentless storm. And then, with a final strike from the human flagship, the golden fortress split apart, exploding into fragments that lit the void with burning light. The shock was immediate. Alien fleets broke formation, their confidence shattered. Messages filled the channels, voices of fear replacing commands of pride. Ships retreated, some fleeing into the darkness, others falling silent as their crews abandoned hope. The humans did not chase them. They did not need to. The message was already clear. Earth had been ordered to kneel. Instead, it had risen in fire. In the silence that followed, the wreckage of both sides drifted through the void. Human ships, scarred and burning, floated in tight formation, their engines still alive, their weapons still ready. They had survived. They had defied. And though the price was high, the galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was no longer a fragile world. Humanity was a force. Humanity was the Black Armada, and the Council had made its greatest mistake. The battle was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than war. Wreckage drifted through the cold dark, glowing faintly with fire and broken sparks. Shattered hulls floated like graves, pieces of ships both human and alien turning slowly in the void. The solar system, once quiet, was now a tomb of steel. The Black Armada held its position. Ships scarred and burning stayed in tight formation, their engines dim but steady. Survivors carried the weight of every sacrifice, every life lost, every oath kept. Humanity had bled, but humanity had not bowed. Across the galaxy, voices fell silent. The Council's fleets that had once spoken with pride now carried whispers of fear. Messages spread faster than light, telling the same story again and again. Earth had stood. Earth had fought. Earth had won. In the Council chambers, disbelief ruled. For centuries they had commanded empires, ended rebellions, and crushed entire civilizations. None had resisted the way humanity had. None had dared to strike back with such fury. Leaders argued, voices rising with panic. How had a young world built such power in secret? How had the humans hidden an entire armada? But while the Council argued, the humans acted. The Black Armada broadcast a signal, carried on every channel, every frequency, every corner of space. It was not filled with long speeches or threats. It was not an offer of peace or a demand for surrender. It was a single steady voice, clear and cold, echoing from the flagship itself. Humanity kneels to no one. The words rippled through the stars like thunder. On distant worlds, alien citizens listened in silence. On frontier colonies, soldiers who had once mocked humans now felt their own fear grow. On ships far from the battlefield, crews stopped to hear the message. Their eyes fixed on the shadows drifting through the void. And then came the images. The Armada sent visions of the battle, alien fleets burning. The golden flagship shattered, the humans still standing. Every empire, every ruler, every species saw the truth with their own eyes. Humanity had been ordered to kneel, but instead it had risen like fire. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy questioned its balance of power. If Earth could do this in silence, what else could it do if pushed? On Earth itself, the people gathered to watch the return of their ships. Crowds filled the streets looking up as the Armada came home, scarred but alive. Children waved at the sky, their faces shining with pride. Families wept for the lost, but their tears carried no shame. Only the knowledge that their sacrifice had carved freedom into the stars. Leaders stood before their people, not as politicians, not as rulers, but as voices of a united world. For the first time in history, Earth spoke as one. Their message was simple: we will never bow. In the shadows of space, survivors of alien fleets limped back to their empires. Some carried tales of terror, describing the Armada as monsters cloaked in black steel. Others whispered of respect, admitting that the humans had shown a courage no one else had dared. But all carried the same truth. Earth was no longer a weak voice. The Council tried to recover. They promised revenge, swore to rebuild, and sent out orders for new fleets. But doubt spread even among their own allies. The empires who had once trusted their strength now wondered if the Council had met its match. If Earth could shatter their command fleet, what hope did anyone else have to stand against them? The galaxy was shifting, and in the center of it all was the Black Armada, silent in victory, patient as ever. Humanity did not declare itself conqueror. It did not demand tribute or bow in return. It only held its line, guarding its home, daring any who wished to try again. On the flagship, Admiral Kalen stood at the command window, watching the stars. His voice was low when he spoke to his officers. They thought we were weak. They thought we would kneel. Let them remember instead what they saw here today. His officers nodded, their faces hard, their hearts carrying the same fire. They knew this was not the end. The galaxy would not forget, but neither would it forgive. The Council would come again with more fleets, more weapons, more fury. But the Armada would be ready, and when the time came, humanity would answer the same way, for freedom, for defiance, for the unbroken will of a species that refused chains. As the wreckage drifted into the endless night, the words repeated again and again across the stars, a warning and a promise both. Humanity kneels to no one. The galaxy demanded Earth's surrender. What it received instead was the Black Armada, and the whisper of that defiance would haunt empires for generations to come.